Today I got a 06 Explorer, and it has a couple different things going on, but the main concern is the ABS lights on. And also, when the customer goes to pull out, let's say in the traffic or whatever, and go to take off, the sensor on the right rear is acting up, and it's activating the traction control. Like it's a traction control event, but it's a false event. And I'm going to go for a drive here in the lot real quick and show you the way it's pulsing pretty consistently. I'm thinking we have a cracked tone ring. The rear tone rings on these, on the Explorers, the new ones. The old ones we had no problems. On the new ones, 06 on to 10, we had problems with the cracked tone rings. Mainly 06, 07. And in the rears only. So the one we're looking at is the bottom one, the right rear, and you see the rest of them come up, they're smooth, they're mirroring each other. Same thing, and then the bottom one's just twitching and it's dropping out pretty consistently though, like there's a crack and a gap in the tone ring. So I'll go for a drive here. You can see it's activating it, even though we're on a perfectly dry road. It's got no ABS lights as of right now because it's reading it enough. And it's causing that traction control to come on, which can be pretty dangerous going out into intersection or whatever. So it's a good idea to get it fixed. So as you can see, for this right rear sensor, it's dropping out pretty regular on there, as long as I kept the speed right. That one. You can see the dropouts. This is what the module is seeing, whereas these ones are smooth and the module sees no problems. Well, the module software is kind of dumb. Yeah, I flagged the codes because at some point it lost it for too long, but at this point it thinks, hey, that wheel's slipping, or that wheel's locked up, and it'll just activate that traction control or your ABS when it's not required. It's a false activation. So this is pretty consistent with a tone ring that's cracked and has that wider gap between the teeth, and it doesn't induce no voltage, and therefore it drops out like that. Whereas otherwise it's fine, and these ones are of course fine. So I'd say let's go back to the shop and we'll check it out and see what's going on back there. So I crawled underneath here, and the first thing I noticed that the tone ring was loose, which obviously is because the ring cracked. And I looked on the other side and I could see it cracked right there. And that's that extra large gap that you're seeing in the scan tool as being here we go, as being a dropout. Alright guys, the Mountaineer came back to get the indicator put on. We got it in stock now, and I'm going to attempt to film it best I can. I know most parts of it I'm going to need two hands, but you'll get the idea and you'll be able to change out yourself, since I know especially on 06's Explorer, Mountaineer, doesn't matter. 06, 07, but especially 06, they got that real problem with the rears cracking only. And it's a common enough problem. Figured I'd show you how it's done. First things first, take your tire off. They're 19 millimeter. Get that out of the way. Alright, next we need to pull the brake caliper off. There's a 10 mil here and down below. Undo those, and then we're going to compress the caliper a little bit. Now we're going to take our C-clamp or wood clamp, whatever you got, just like that. We're going to compress it just a few turns and push it in just a little bit so we can get this out of here without it dragging on the rust ridge. Get something down here where the anti-rattle clip is at and compress it up, and then pull on the bottom part of the caliper at the same time, and then the whole thing will just come out like that. Right here you can see that cracked part where it's separated just a little bit better. than earlier in the video. You can see it. And once that's cracked, it loses its press-on fit and it moves. Next thing we need to get off is the rotor. Give it a slight hit with your hammer, and that'll break it free from the rust bond. No matter how good or bad this stub that sticks out from the half shaft looks, always spray those threads with some kind of rust penetrant. Let it soak for a minute or so. Once the rotor is removed, we can pull the axle nut after it's soaked for a while. It's a 35mm. After the nut's off, we need to press that axle shaft back in. I use a air hammer right there in the center. Works perfect at vibrating it out. This top bolt, loosen it, but don't take it out. They're 15/16. Okay, we're underneath the vehicle now on the back side of the hub there. This bottom toe link right here, we're going to back the bolt out. Like so. Just enough. And you should take the nut off. It's 15/16 both sides again. And leave it in like that. And that is just getting it back in there so we have access to these bolts, which we need to take out to flip that knuckle up. So we're just pushing this back to get it out of the way. Alright, pull these 3 hub bolts out. 1, 2, 3 that hold the knuckle to the trailing arm here. They're 13/16 and they're really in there tight, so be ready for them. Alright, back down the ground here. Put a jack under the lower control arm, right underneath the spring here. And support, got a little cup to it right there. And then this should be the last bolt we need to do before we flip this whole thing out of the way. It's a 15/16. Should be able to take it out with fairly ease if you got the spring pressure off, like I do. Just a couple pumps up, and it takes the pressure off this whole assembly. And it'll hold it, and then we can flip this out. Now you'd be able to take this whole knuckle and pull it out like this and up. Let's see if I can do this. Push in your half shaft at the same time. See, hopefully, get out of there. Better angle. Right up and out of the way. Alright, so once you got it loose from the lower arm, those 3 bolts are out. You flip it up. Just like that. The way I got it staying there, this is fine. It's not going to kill the bushing while you're just doing this real quick. This 15/16 on both sides that you loosened earlier, the bolt that goes through there, flip it all the way up. All the way up. And while it's all the way up, cinch this bolt back down. And it'll hold it up for us. Now if yours is cracked like mine, it'll literally just fall off like this. And then all we gotta do is right here where it seats, the actual area where it seats, this isn't heavily rusted, but you still want to clean it up. Scuff it up, and then we'll clean with brake clean. Alright, I got it cleaned up enough. I put a real slight amount of grease all the way around. I mean, this is going to go all the way around. Just going to keep working it all the way around. Real slight, and it helps ease on the new one. It's not going to cause it to slip off or nothing like that. Just a real light coat. I mean, you're pressing it on there pretty tight, so... Now it's time to press that ring on, and instead of fighting this end from flopping around and everything, and being sunk down in here and everything, regular old 2x4 back in there, on the shaft, and it goes on top that toe link, and it supports it so that you can press that ring on properly and do a good job. Now what you can do is heat up this tone ring with like a propane torch, you know, nothing too hot, and get it a little bit expanded, a little soft, whatever I'm call it, and then you can tap it on all the way around with the hammer evenly. Just be patient and it should go on. We got the fancy press tool from Ford. It's a forcing screw and the disc here that actually cups that ring just right, and this centers it so that it goes on there nice and even. We're gonna go back to that ridge right there. You can see where it stops. Use that as a guide. Now the spec for this is 150 millimeters from the absolute end of this to this side of the tone ring. I put something flat against the end, and this thing's exactly 150 millimeters. It's plus or minus 1 millimeter, and I'm right at 150. Yep, actually, yeah. Yeah, actually it's perfectly 150 right now. And that was just a guess. So we're good. These, unlike the escapes, can't go all the way back till they stop. You actually have to measure them. And I suggest you get a ruler with millimeters on it. Top bolt up here that you pinched off earlier to hold the knuckle up. Loosen it up again. Made it back up again. Get it through there and splined. Lower your knuckle through the lower arm here. We can line that bolt up and get it back in there. Might tweak it a little bit, and I'll go through the other side, and then you can put your captured nut back in there. This sticks into the arm, kind of like this one, but on the other side. At this point, we can do a pre-check of our alignment by fully sucking in this half shaft. And if you're going to reuse the nut, make sure you put Blue Loctite on it. And we're going to cinch it down, and then we'll torque it again later on once the weight of the vehicle's on, like it specifies. So let's cinch it down. Okay. Now we can check the alignment of the sensor, and it should basically be centered. I mean, it'll pick it up. And you can see this one's perfectly centered, and we'll get a good read from that tone ring. Back underneath here, we need to get these 3 bolts back into that knuckle, to the trailing arm. And get your first one by moving the trailing arm around, and then we can worry about tweaking the knuckle up to get these other 2 in, and we'll use this one as a pivot point. So get this first bolt in, thread it in, you know, halfway at least. So what I do to get that top bolt lined up, we'll do the next easiest one to get to, is get a pry bar, and you're on the upper toe link up there, and then you're prying against the lower toe link right here, and you push towards the front of the vehicle, and it will move it, the top part of the knuckle to the rear of the vehicle, and it will align that hole, and you should be able to get that one in by hand, no problem. And now this one should be lined up. Once you got all three of these in, tighten them up, put Blue Loctite on them. They're 203 foot-pounds. Once you got those 3 bolts in and torqued down, Blue Loctite, tap your lower toe link back in. And then put the nut on it, but don't tighten it at this time. Once again, jack it up, all the way up until the full weight is sitting on the jack, so we can compress the spring and get it back to ride height before you cinch down these bolts, which puts stress in the bushing, so we can put them at a neutral position at ride height. Once you got it up, this bottom one for the lower control arm is 205 foot-pounds, and this one, the lower toe link, is 260 foot-pounds. This top toe link bolt is 166 foot-pounds. Do it at the same time. Again, use Blue Loctite on everything that you're going to be reusing, any bolt you're reusing. One thing I just want to note is that this one on the driver's side, I looked at them, compared the two. The ring on this one's a lot smaller and thinner and all that, the stock ones. And then you could see our new one, it's a lot beefier. So this should cure the problem and be the last time you got to press one of these on. Put your rotor back on, your caliper. Remember it hooks in up top here. Focus there. Hooks in, see the pad? And then the bottom slides into place. And then put your bolts in. They should thread in by hand, no problem. And that'll tell you that the caliper is fully seated. And then don't forget your ABS sensor wiring back onto the hose in case you disconnected it. Don't want that dangling next. Pop your center cap out from the back side here. Just pop it and it'll pop right out. And then we can get access to that axle nut when we're have the weight of the vehicle on the ground. Torque it down to 205 foot-pounds. Now you can apply the parking brake and do it up in the air, but it's just they recommend to do it with the weight of the vehicle on it. Torque your lug nuts down to 100 foot-pounds, and then pop that center cap back on. We can go for a test drive. Alright, so ABS codes. The light will actually clear by itself once you achieve 10 miles an hour or more, and it's reading all 4 sensors and any other sensors on an advanced track system. Everything checks out after 10 miles an hour. It will auto clear the light. The codes will still be in there, the module itself, but the light will go out, and that's a easy indication. It's kind of like the airbag lights. They're always monitoring. Same idea, the ABS is always monitoring, and it'll turn the light off once everything seems copacetic. So this one, I drove it around, and I got good read on the sensor, and they're all smooth, all 4 of them, and the tone rings all lined up. We have no spikes or dropouts. So this one is definitely fixed. We saw the cracked tone ring, but you never know what else might be wrong. But you got to fix what you see and go from there.